Good evening, you're watching 7 at 7. I'm Preeti Choudhry. Top focus, our neighbor Bangladesh has plunged into crisis as Sheikh Hasina quits as Prime Minister. Martial law interimly placed. We're going to get you the latest update. Sheikh Hasina touched down in the national capital, or just short of that, at the Hindon Air Base. We're going to get you the details. All right, the latest news break that we are continuously following after the turmoil in Bangladesh. You had Sheikh Hasina, who is now the former Prime Minister of Bangladesh, touched down at the Hindon Air Base. What we have been given in terms of information, Sheikh Hasina right now yet to deboard from her Bangladesh Air Force jet. No flight plans for Hasina's jet yet. External Affairs Minister Shankar has briefed Prime Minister Modi on the Bangladesh crisis and the urgency with which Sheikh Hasina flew to India. She touched down at the Hindon Air Base and right now is yet to alight from her aircraft. Leader of Opposition Rahul Gandhi met the External Affairs Minister in Lok Sabha and spoke regarding the developments in Bangladesh. Sheikh Hasina's son has now demanded fresh elections. Right now, martial law in place where Bangladesh is concerned as an interim government. Listen in.
Law enforcement agency, BGB এবং কি আমাদের মিলিটারির প্রতি আমার আহ্বান যে আপনাদের দায়িত্ব হচ্ছে আমাদের দেশের মানুষকে নিরাপদ রাখা এবং আমাদের দেশকে নিরাপদ রাখা, আমাদের দেশের সংবিধানকে নিরাপদ রাখা, সংবিধানকে রক্ষা করা। তার মানে এক মিনিটের জন্য কোনো অনির্বাচিত সরকার আমাদের ক্ষমতায় আসতে দিবেন না। এটা হচ্ছে আপনাদের দায়িত্ব, কারণ সেইটা হলে আমরা আবার পাকিস্তানের মতন হয়ে যাব। আমাদের এই যে 15 বছরের উন্নয়ন সব শেষ হয়ে যাবে। বাংলাদেশ এর থেকে আর কোনোদিন ফিরে আসবে না। আমিও সেটা চাই না, আপনারাও সেটা চান না। আমি সজীব ওয়াজের জয় যতদিন আমার পক্ষে সম্ভব আমি সেটা হতে দেব না।
Meanwhile, as I speak, viewers, total chaos, turmoil in neighbouring Bangladesh after hundreds were killed, 90 in a single day in Bangladesh. In anti-government protest, Sheikh Hasina quit as the Prime Minister wasn't given much time. In an emergency, has flown to India. Right now, she is inside her aircraft at the Hindon Air Base. While it's not known if she will stay or leave for London, what we have been given to understand that she sought asylum from the United Kingdom. Her sister lives and resides in the UK. Meanwhile, back in Bangladesh, protesters have laid total siege to the capital, Dhaka. Here's the report, more details.
Bangladesh Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina leaving the capital Dhaka in the face of mass protest, demanding her resignation. Sources say Hasina left Ganabhavan, her official residence, with her sister Rehana for a safer place in Mi-17 chopper. Hasina first flew to Kurmitola and then took a Bangladesh Air Force C-130J Hercules to fly out of Bangladesh. Moments after, celebrations erupted on the streets of Dhaka.
প্রধানমন্ত্রী বাসভবনের দিকে আমরা ওই জায়গায় ঘেরাও দেবো, এরপর দেখবো যে সে আছে কিনা। সম্ভবত সে নেই। বাংলাদেশ এই 14 বছর পর আবার 16 বছর পর আবার স্বাধীন হলো।
আমরা সংগ্রাম করে শুধু রেখে রাখবো না, তাদের স্থান আমাদের বুকে। যে ছাত্র ভাইরা আমাদের শহীদ হয়েছে তাদের স্থান আমাদের কলজার ভিতরে।
আমাদের আজকে খুব ভালো লাগছে। আমাদের মনে হচ্ছে যে আমরা আবার একটা দেশ স্বাধীন করলাম, সেজন্য আমরা এসেছি। আমরা সবাই খুব খুব খুশি। আমি আমার হাজবেন্ড আমরা আজকে রোজা আছি, আল্লাহর কাছে দোয়া চেয়েছি।
Protesters vandalized the statue of Sheikh Mujibur Rahman, the founder of Bangladesh and Sheikh Hasina's father. A huge crowd even stormed the Prime Minister's residence. They walked through the grounds of Sheikh Hasina's residence, boating through ponds and water bodies, cheered with chairs and other furniture. Chilled on the bed, looted memorabilia and utensils, and hugged men in uniform. Next, the protesters lay siege to the Bangladeshi parliament. Army Chief General Waqaruzzman announced in a television address that with Hasina leaving the country, an interim government would be formed.
আমরা এখন মহামান্য রাষ্ট্রপতির কাছে যাব যে এই ইন্টারিম গভর্নমেন্ট ফর্মের ব্যাপারে ওনার সাথে আলাপ আলোচনা করে আমরা একটা ইন্টারিম গভর্নমেন্ট ফর্ম করে দেশ পরিচালনা করব।
Student activists had called for a march to the capital Dhaka on Monday in defiance of a nationwide curfew to press Hasina to resign. A day after deadly clashes across the country killed nearly 100 people. About 150 people have been killed in protests last month, after student groups demanded scrapping of a controversial quota system in government jobs. Bureau Report, India Today.
Scenes we'd seen not so far back in neighbouring Sri Lanka. There, this, viewers, was a protest at the back of the quota system in the country of Bangladesh, which turned into a massive movement fueled by anger of students. Sheikh Hasina, right now, no longer, to recap, as the Prime Minister of Bangladesh, has resigned. Right now, she's still inside that fighter jet that landed at the Hindon Air Base. We're going to get you the very latest and also what it really means for our country, India, to not have what has been looked like a friendly head of state, Sheikh Hasina, in Bangladesh. Joining me, Geeta Mohan, Executive Editor, National Bureau, India Today TV, Lieutenant General Sanjay Kulkarni, former Chief of Staff, 14 Corps and DG Infantry, Indian Army, Sushant Sareen, Senior Fellow, ORF, Strategic Affairs Expert, Rajiv Dogra, former Consulate General to Pakistan, Ashok Sajjanhar, former Indian diplomat. I want to cut across to my colleague Geeta first on exactly what's going on, Geeta. At the Hindon Air Base, word coming in that Sheikh Hasina has yet to alight from the aircraft or the fighter jet she's flown in. What are you picking up? Is she leaving for London? What's the latest information?
Well, it was supposed to be a refueling stopover. Is also one where from Bangladesh they did not really have to stop in Delhi or in India for refueling. The fact that it is happening here and the fact that she's here, I'm sure there will be engagement and contact with the officials, high-level officials in India. But again, technically, if you see, she's not in Palam technical. She's in Hindon Air Base, which is a distance away. So clearly, there is a reason why she's still inside, is because the officials who are to meet her might not be there yet, one, and secondly, we do not know whether if she already has her clearances for London or not. The manner in which Sheikh Hasina and Sheikh Preeti left Bangladesh was sudden. The situation had completely turned volatile suddenly and they had to leave. In fact, she was to record a statement and an address to the nation and she couldn't even do that. Before that, she had to leave her official residence, which is Gana Bhavan. So we do know that the situation was quite tricky. It was very volatile. And so we do not know whether she had all the permissions. She's left her country. She's right now in New Delhi. We'll have to wait and see whether if she's going to go ahead immediately after, because her final destination, as was told earlier, is London. So let's see whether she's going to leave soon or whether she's going to wait a while, depending on the clearances from London as well.
Geeta, it's going to be a tightrope walk for us. What's really going on in the Ministry of External Affairs? Because Sheikh Hasina, to say it very clearly, has been the closest geopolitical partner in the region for India. And not having her in the saddle in Bangladesh would be very, very detrimental. How are we approaching the situation right now?
Well, Preeti, it is going to be very, very serious in terms of the situation and how things are panning out. We are getting some information that's coming in that sources telling India Today that National Security Advisor, which is what we were saying earlier also, has in fact met the former Prime Minister of Bangladesh. That's news just coming in. It's a very important piece of information, Preeti. This is breaking news at this point in time. This is a very important piece of information, because when it comes to the security angle, the security situation, it's the National Security Advisor, N.S.A. Doval, who takes control and has a handle on things. And for them, they have been monitoring the situation in Bangladesh continuously, given that there are many Indians there. But to your larger question right now on how it's going to impact India, it's going to impact India in a very bad way. This is a major blow for India, because a major partner has been ousted from a country that is a near neighbor, and India requires that neighbor to be stable and to be pro-India for the border situation and the security at the border between India and Bangladesh to remain safe and secure. And we've experienced that during Khaleeda Zia government, how difficult the borders and become, and how terrorism really takes roots. Sheikh Hasina in the 15 years managed to do away with that, and India and Bangladesh really forged a very important, strong partnership. That,
Geeta, stay with me. That's what we're going to quickly recap for our viewers right now. The NSA, Ajit Doval, has met Sheikh Hasina at the Hindon Air Base. He's gone inside the aircraft where Sheikh Hasina is. She's yet to alight from the aircraft, and he has gone ahead and met Sheikh Hasina. There will be a course of action. It's going to be a tightrope walk for India, especially. Hasina has been India's closest geopolitical partner in this region, and the current political turmoil in the country of Bangladesh doesn't augur well for India. India has trusted her. India has invested a great deal in the regime of Sheikh Hasina, and with her gone, now this could practically mean trouble, at least like Geeta was elucidating, where India comes into question, because now most of the neighbors where India is in question are hostile to the country. What does this mean for India? We're going to go in deeper. Mind you, just a tidbit, 49 years ago, Sheikh Hasina had to flee Bangladesh for the first time under a coup, and in that coup she lost most of her family, and now, of course, 49 years later, it's come full circle. Sheikh Hasina, once again, in volatile, emergency-like situation, had to immediately flee the country she was the Prime Minister of. She came to power this January in an election which could be said was highly debatable. The opposition charged her of rigging. But Rajiv Dogra, to bring you in on this, how do you read the current situation and the current dynamics? Because number one, India would really not want her to stay, but she's been the closest ally where India comes into question. How do you think we're going to approach the situation?
There are different angles to it. Stop me when you think I'm digressing or going on for too long. But to start with, this was a deja vu in slow motion which was going to happen. If you see the commentary internationally about Bangladesh over the last 2-3 years, there were 2 or 3 constant refrains that she is autocratic, she's lost touch with the ground realities, the economy is drifting down, and corruption is at an all-time high. Just to give you one example, a nuclear plant which Bangladesh had signed with Russia was going to cost them $13 billion. A similar sized nuclear plant which India had signed with Russia had cost us $3.5 billion. So the level of corruption was humongous. The second thing is that they were scripted to come in large numbers because of a definite design by the anti-Sheikh Hasina political parties in Bangladesh, but also by external powers. And by external powers, I principally mean Pakistan, supported to some extent by China. So what it means for India, that was your question, is that we already have a less than friendly neighbor to our north, a less than friendly neighbor to our west. Now we have an uncertain neighbor to our east. So it is going to mean a lot of worries to India till the situation stabilizes in Bangladesh, and that is a big if.
Well, yeah, you're right, because it doesn't seem to happen anytime or happening anytime soon. But, you know, Sushant Sareen, whatever the narrative has been built around Sheikh Hasina and her political outfit, that aside, of her being autocratic, authoritarian, corrupt. But for India, this doesn't augur well at all, because we've economically invested in Bangladesh. She's been one of our closest allies in the area. And now India would be more worried about on who comes next.
Yeah, I think there'll be some serious concerns about what's going to happen next, and nobody really knows. You know, there's an interim government of sorts that's been formed. Will that government be acceptable to the people who are agitating on the streets? We don't know. Will this government last for some time, or will it be ousted very soon? We don't know. Will there be new elections, or will the army take over? Nothing is very clear. And frankly, it's not just about the business relationship and the investments we have made, because those are just as profitable for Bangladesh. After all, Bangladesh has gained a lot from the kind of trade arrangements we have with them and the liberalization that has happened. But even otherwise, I think there's a security angle to what's happening in Bangladesh from an Indian point of view. The old regime before Sheikh Hasina used to pander to separatist groups in India, used to give sanctuary to terrorists and carry out all kinds of nefarious activities in India, despite assurances and promises by people like Tariq Rahman and others, who is the BNP chief's son. So you had a problem even back then. But I think Ambassador Dogra is quite right. You know, we have now a third front of sorts which might be opening up in Bangladesh, and that's a very serious security challenge to us. And then, Preeti, let's not ignore the possibility, very real, because we are already getting reports of massive pogroms sorts taking place against the Hindu community out there. And there's some very disturbing videos doing the rounds. And frankly, if there is a massive exodus of the Hindu community into India, then it creates even more problems. It creates a communal tension within India. It creates a problem of how are you going to accommodate the refugees. It's a nightmare in the making. So I think there will be a lot of concerns about what's happening. But again, let's also not forget two things. One, we have had Bangladesh in turmoil routinely. You know, every 5, 7, 10 years, there is a massive upsurge which takes place in Bangladesh. It happened against Sheikh Mujib, happened against Irshad, it has happened subsequently. So Bangladesh has a habit of going into these convulsions and then coming out of it. Things quite the same.
Fair point. But since 2001, at least, we've had somebody in the saddle. 2009, we've had somebody in the saddle there who at least we trusted and built a relationship with, which was in the form of Sheikh Hasina. And, you know, Ashok Sajjanhar, I want to bring you on this, because who next? The army says they're, you know, martial law right now till an interim government is in place, till we don't know whether their elections are going to take place. But the other powerful party is the Bangladesh Nationalist Party. And India has always had a troubled relationship with the BNP. They've been known to be close to China. And if the BNP comes in, you know, India wouldn't really want that.
No, absolutely. Preeti, you're very right. BNP has been close to China, but even more so, it has been close to Pakistan. I remember when I used to be there, you know, in the 90s, and Begum Khalida Zia was at the helm of affairs. And our access to the echelons of power used to be very, very limited. And that is because, you know, the Pakistani elements, the ISI, etc., they were there in full strength. And it was there that, you know, safe havens were being provided to people who were acting against India in the northeast. It's only after Sheikh Hasina came that, you know, there was a clamp down on such elements. So, you know, what the previous two panelists have said, I quite agree with that, that this is going to be a difficult time. This is going to be an uncertain time. But I think we'll really have to, you know, take it forward one step at a time. I think right now the problem would be basically to ensure, you know, number one, whoever are the Indian students, businessmen, citizens who are there, that they are able to come out. They are, you know, there is security and safety for them. Second is, you know, as far as the Hindu elements there are concerned, you know, is there going to be a backlash against them, as we have been hearing and to make sure that this is, this is controlled and this is contained to the maximum extent possible.
All right, I'm going to go into a break, but I'm going to quickly pull in our two other guests who've joined us. I have General Sanjay Kulkarni as well, and Veena Sikri, a former Indian diplomat who served at the Indian High Commission in Bangladesh. Veena Sikri, how worried are you, especially vis-a-vis India, on what's going on in Bangladesh?
Look, first we have to understand clearly what is going on in Bangladesh. I think we worry or don't worry as we see the situation evolve. And I must say that we have to also recognize very clearly that although this started as a students' protest movement, as a quota reform movement, what has been happening over the last few days is nothing to do with the students' protests. These protesters are some other people. And today to see, in the Gana Bhavan and others, somebody's lying on the sofa, somebody's lying on the bed, to see the statue of the father of the nation being vandalized, to see the home, Dhanmandi 32, the home where Sheikh Mujibur Rahman was assassinated, to see that being set on fire. Who are these people? This seems to be definitely the hand of the Jamaat-e-Islami, because they are trying to wipe out the memory of anything to do with the Awami League and the memory of that. So this is some factor that we have to take on board as to what is happening. And that is why it is very important that stability returns to Bangladesh. These protesters, I don't call them the student movement at all. The quota reform movement ended when the Supreme Court gave its judgment and said that yes, the quotas will only be for 5% for the children of the freedom fighters, and the others will be just 2%. So after that, because there had been this clash between the Awami League student wing, Chhatra League, between the Shibir, the Jamaat-e-Islami student wing, and the BNP student wing, you saw this huge clash on the road. That's what destroyed all the infrastructure. We saw the destruction of highways, of the Bangladesh television, of the national data center, of flyovers, all kinds. So, this is something else. The students would never do it. They are very patriotic. I don't see the students as, defacing the statue of Sheikh Mujib. Now, the interim government, the army has come in to bring in stability. We saw the same situation in 2007, 2008, when there was the army-backed caretaker government for 2 years. And it was the people who wanted to go back to elections. It was the people who said, we don't want an army-led government. And the UN said, if you continue with the government, we're going to make sure you don't take part in UN peacekeeping operations. The army went back to the barracks, but they have very big force for stability. When the situation went out of control, because the curfew was ordered yesterday, still the people came out on the streets today, and there were 3 lakhs of people on the streets in Dhaka. The army took over. Sheikh Hasina went to meet the president. She resigned. And the army has said that the Chief of Army Staff, Wakruzaman, has said in a press conference he's trying to form an interim government. 2 or 3 lists are floating around saying who is going to be in the interim government.
Right.
The Chief of Army Staff has said he will go to the president and get the interim government approved. The first thing is the army chief himself said is to get the protesters off the streets, to get stability. India's keenest interest in Bangladesh is for stability, it is for democracy, and it is for continued development.
Well, the army, where Bangladesh is concerned, has said no force be used against the protesters. Just coming back to you, Ms. Sikri, I just want to quickly pull in General Kulkarni as well, who's been patiently waiting. General Kulkarni, these are times like this where you actually look within, because in the region, these visuals, unfortunately, are not new. We've seen them in Sri Lanka. We've seen the Corps Commander's house being ransacked where Pakistan is concerned. We've seen what's gone down in Myanmar. And strangely, India right in the middle, where at least we still have a robust democracy, where the army still stays in the barracks.
Preeti, no doubt about it. India is a robust democracy, and that the armed forces of India are apolitical. There is just no denying the fact. But what happened in Bangladesh happened, if you look back 15th of August 1975, Sheikh Mujibur Rahman, where we had to send a chopper to rescue and whatever we could do to help them. Today, the 5th of August 2024, you find us propping up. Of course, she used her own helicopter to come to Tripura, and then now she's been flown into Hindon. But look at it, what's happening in Bangladesh is very, very worrisome. They're saying, kahin pe nigah hai, kahin pe nishana. The target is India. There's a narrative which is working well. It's an ISI, like what Mr. Sajjana said, which are deep inroads, despite what we've done in Bangladesh, where the Awami League is indeed grateful and finds it, and we have We should have done what we did to help liberate Bangladesh from Pakistan. Despite millions of women being raped in Bangladesh, you see the hold of ISI. You see the Jamaat-e-Islami keeping a tight control over the nefarious designs and activities in Bangladesh. This is what is worrisome. See the way the Chinese are going about it, whether it's having ports there, placing submarines there, giving military equipment to the Bangladesh army is concerned. That look at the way the United States does what it does in Bangladesh. All this was worrisome. We knew it was coming, but we always expected someone which is, has good relations with India, definitely help. Otherwise, we have a Siliguri corridor, we have the kind of northeast turmoil, we see all of it, and now we have in midst of it Bangladesh. Already what's happening in Myanmar, we know. The influx from Myanmar into Manipur, we know. All of it now going to happen in Bangladesh, we know. We know what's happened in Rohingyas, how they were pushed, and how ISI was involved in pushing them. So absolutely worrisome. We are in thick of a problem, and you see this is orchestrated, something like color revolution. You see the kind of things happening the world over, similar kind of things happening. You see these kind of things are very, very worrisome. We have to be very, very careful, very watchful. We have to seal our borders, ensure that the refugees don't start making influx into India. Of course, there are the Hindus in Bangladesh are into trouble. Their houses are being burned. Right. You find Awami League houses, offices being burned. All this is something which we have.
Well, you are right, because one really does tend to wonder what really is going on, because is this just students' anger, and will students actually pull down the statue of a man? Disregard right now in terms of the corruption charges, the authoritarian charges on his daughter, but somebody who was technically the father of the country, and bring his statue down. And it's interesting because 49 years ago, the same man was killed, and that's the time when Sheikh Hasina flew in left the country in a coup where Bangladesh was concerned that wiped out mostly entirely her entire family.